Welcome back to another episode of the Mom Founders Table. And it is that time of year. We are fully immersed in the holiday season. And this is an amazing time where it can promote togetherness. And this is also a very overwhelming time where we have 8 million events that we're invited to. We're trying to sprint to the finish of the year and accomplish the goals that we set. We are trying to navigate setting up, our time off if we're taking it from the business and kids being home from school. And so this can feel like a lot. And one of the things that I recognize about this season is it is one of the easiest seasons for you to put yourself and the things for yourself in the back seat. And so I want to talk today about how we can manage really the guilt that comes with saying yes to the things that we want, saying yes to the things for ourselves, because we are so quick to say yes to anything that is for our family and anything that is for our business. But when it comes to things for us, we question, we procrastinate, we doubt. And then if we say yes, we feel guilty on the back end of it, or we feel too guilty on the front end to say yes. And so this applies obviously not just to the holiday season, but our entire lives, right? As mothers and as business owners, this is an issue that we run into, feeling guilty for wanting things and feeling like we need to really dig in and find every piece of data that supports us being okay with saying yes to ourselves and the things that we want. So I was thinking about this recently because, as I talked about on the last episode, I had my VIP planning day. And I went through the same process in my head as I recognized, okay, this is something that I have to do for my business. Because if you're a mom running a business, you know that the way that we work is traditionally in time blocks. That's what I always recommend. And so my schedule is largely built around my kids' school schedules. There are things that fall outside of that, right? So if I travel to a client for a VIP day, when I run retreats for my clients. And so there are always things that are outliers for the normal week-to-week schedule. But what I recognize is that I was really craving the space and the time and the clarity and the planning that all of my clients were getting. And I know that I have the expertise to sit down and do this, but I kept running into the issue of time and the reality of when you are planning for a lot of change in your business or a remodel or a restructure or just planning for an entire year based upon the year prior and what your goals are. Being interrupted is not conducive to that. And I think that's one of the hardest things as a mom, right? Is that we do get interrupted. We have time that they're at school. We have uninterrupted time, but that time is usually in those intervals, those time blocks. And so long story short, I really found myself craving this. I knew I was you have grown way too much, especially this past year, to just kind of wing it, if you will. And that's not to say that we're winging it over here, but a lot of it really as moms, and that's a part of entrepreneurship, is you have to be able to make some quick calls. But I have never sat down and spent an entire 8-hour plus day solely on my business without interruption ever in 12 years, 13 years. So I knew that I needed this, right? And I have the most supportive husband in the world that literally, if I was I need a week to go plan for my business, he'd be like, do your thing, babe. And still I was oh, that's another day. And, he's going to have to do dinner for the kids by himself. And, just all these things that I was telling myself. And it's so interesting how our minds work because we're so quick to justify something. Like if it's a VIP day for my client, if it's a retreat, if it's something for my business or for my clients or for my family, there's not a second thought. I'm just like, okay, babe, this is my VIP day. This is where I'm flying to. This is what it looks like. Cool. We're on the same page. But when it came to something for me, I was really struggling. And it took me this booking my VIP day for myself was honestly on my to-do list for, I want to say, at least a month, if not 2 months. And actually booking a space to do this took me, I don't know, 20 minutes. But it was just my mind getting in the way. And so I finally was like, I have to do this, right? Because my clients deserve this. My potential clients deserve this. My team deserves this clarity. And I deserve this. I have worked incredibly hard to build what I have built and built it from absolutely nothing and built myself from absolutely nothing. And so I had to really talk myself into why this was important. And so I share that with you to let you know that this is something that all of us as mothers and business owners struggle with. That the things for ourselves always seem to be the things that are easiest to push. Obviously, it sat on my to-do list for like 2 months. And so today, I want to share with you some different things that you can do to actually walk through this guilt and really make you think differently about the things for yourself. So I think one of the most helpful things for me that I have done anytime I've felt guilty about choosing myself is reframing like how I'm looking at and reframing the word guilt itself and framing it into growth. And what I mean by this is really thinking thoroughly into, okay, we think that if I do this, it's going to take away from someone or something else, right? And so that's the exact thought process that I was having is I'm like, okay, this is going to take, more of Eric's time. This is going to, I'm going to have to like block off a full day. We think about what we're going to lose. And what we don't think about is what we're going to gain. And so me taking that full day allowed me to plan, get clarity. Just so much happened and the reflections that were so powerful that I was like not giving myself permission to see the growth that I had had or celebrate that in any way. That in itself and thinking about, okay, what am I going to gain from this? And not only what am I going to gain, what is everybody else around me going to gain when I gain? So when I am clear, when I'm focused, my team benefits because then I'm like, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it. Let's collaborate on this. This is what it needs to look like. These are the goals versus just throwing shit out as it comes to me, right? And so it's important that we reframe guilt into it from being something that is a takeaway to thinking about this is growth and what will I gain and what will the people around me gain by me doing this? Of course, like after that planning day, I felt so enlightened and excited and proud. And when I came home to my family, obviously I'm in a different state of mind to where I'm like happy, honestly, to where it's like, I'm not drained. I'm not frustrated or resentful. I'm like, this is amazing. I just had an amazing day and I'm so glad to now be home with my family. And so I think that sometimes we don't see that ripple effect. So instead of thinking about the ripple effect of what you'll lose or how it would be negative, which is usually bullshit, we need to think about the net gain and the positive. Another thing that's very helpful for me is to really think about what the priority is And then also sharing that priority, even talking out loud to Eric of like, I really need this. And it feels very important because, and I didn't have to justify that to him at all, but I needed to hear it for myself. And a lot of things, we say things and we give advice that we really need. And so it was one of those situations where when I thought about what the priority is, and the priorities being, maintaining an excellent level of customer service and, continuing our retention rates and our renewal rates and our referral rates. When I think about like the importance of those things and how to prioritize those things, I needed a clear plan, and I needed to be able to sit and be able to delegate to my team. So knowing the priorities of the business and knowing that it needed to be a priority for me and for the business, it became something that when I shared it, it was like, well, yes, that absolutely makes sense for you to do that. And so think about what your priorities are, what your values are, what your goals are, and then share those. Share those openly with your family and with your team, because in those goals, you're going to find that you're going to have to do things for yourself, right? If we have health goals, if we have fitness goals, if we have, sleep goals, if we want to sleep more, if we want to feel better, like if we want to make more money, if we want to work less, there's going to be some involvement of you needing to do something for yourself, period. Another thing that helps navigate guilt and saying yes to yourself is knowing that things are taken care of. And so in the business, this looks like having the right team members in place. In your home, it looks like having the right team members in place. It's funny because I say that jokingly, but Eric and I talked about this on the marriage series that we did, but like your community that you are working with and inside of should feel like a team. And when it feels like a team, you feel supported, which then allows you to work in your zone of genius. It allows you to have time and space for yourself and for the things that you want. And so that in itself is huge. I mean, this is, team in the business. This is home support. This is even down to like the efficiencies in your business, to where it's like your automations and your the way that your workflows are set up. Anything in the actual business itself, to where it's easier to step away and choose yourself when you know that things are going to be okay when you do step away. Because that's the fear, right? We're afraid to take time for ourselves or do something for ourselves because it's going to take us out of something that we're currently doing. And what will happen to that thing that we're currently doing if we take ourselves out of it? That's where the fear comes in. So if we can remove that fear by knowing I have the right team member in place that could take that over, I have the right partner support that can help with that, I have automation set up to where I don't need to think about that. And so just thinking about in your business, what are the things that you're afraid of stepping away from? And what are the pieces that need to be put in place to be unafraid to step away from those things? The next thing is setting non-negotiables for yourself. There is a certain standard that we have to hold for ourselves. And we do this in our businesses a lot, to where it's like the standard of excellence, the standard of like how we deliver, our customer service standard. We have these standards, and we need to be setting those same standards for ourselves, because in order to uphold standards as wives, as mothers, and as business owners, we have to have a certain level of standard for ourselves, to where it's like, I am not going to just mindlessly scroll on social media when I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to learn how to ask for help. I am going to get up every morning and spend some time on myself personally and not professionally, just because I deserve to grow as a human. And so thinking about what are the small habits that you can implement that will help you to keep those standards. And even if you feel a sense of guilt, then it goes back to the reminder of what will I gain and what will the people around me gain when I have these non-negotiables for myself. Taking time to just block out small things, even like blocking off lunch on your calendar, blocking off time for workouts. Like when I do my client CEO schedules, I'm always asking like before work, after work, like, what does that look like? What would you want it to look like? Because we need those things in place, because otherwise it's easy for us to just fall back on work. And then last but not least is we're like figuring out how to handle this guilt. It's most important for you to ask yourself the question of, what would I want for my kids? Would you want your kids to just abandon the things for themselves? Would you want your kids to continuously push their physical health, mental health, things for them that are connected to their well-being, their happiness, their joy, their fulfillment? Would you want them to not do those things? Because what we forget as parents is that, especially with little kids, they learn by watching. And we can talk as much as we want, but if we are not leading by example, none of it matters. And so I hope that this is giving you reasons why you can say yes to yourself and some tools that you can use when you're struggling, like I was, to say yes to something for you. And just remember, there's always something to gain when you prioritize yourself. And if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, if you want to just have a conversation about, I'm struggling with putting this thing for myself, even though I need it, feel free to send me a message. My DMs and my emails are always open to you guys. So thank you for listening, and we will talk next week.